This model house build continues with the sheathing of the roof, building of the overframe, and applying the last of the seam tape. So let's get to work. The first thing that we need to do is determine the first course of sheathing. I do this by positioning the sheet where it will go on the roof, making a couple marks, then a straight edge will be used across the roof. I really need to find a way to make a thin, accurate chalk line. Snapping a line here would be much easier. Next, I'm going to make marks on the sheathing for my 2 foot on center spacing. I will do this on the top and bottoms of each full sheet. This ensures that the spacing between trusses stays consistent throughout the entire process of installing the sheathing. You can see here that I am pushing the truss to the right with my pointer finger. I am eyeing the mark on the sheet to the center of the truss and nailing it off. I need to cut a notch out for around this girder. Admittedly, I'm a little out of practice and I should have angled this inside corner and not made it 90 degrees. I will point out why later in the video. The next couple sheets will need to be ripped. These type of cuts would be great for a little mini table saw, which I do not have, but I really need to make that purchase. Wait a second. Oh, come on. Look at this. The power of the gun just broke a few trusses off of the girder. Well, we gotta fix that. Well, I have an issue here. This full sheet doesn't make it all the way out to the subfascia. So I guess what I'll do, because, well, I can do whatever I want, I'm going to just cut the sheet back a couple trusses. Yes, my Japanese fine-tooth pull saw. So this thing does not cut the lumber all that well, but chews through the OSB great. So for the remainder of this video, I will be using this saw. Why is this picture so shitty? Is that better? Right? That's gotta be better. Alright, so here's the deal. This past Christmas, I got a new Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra. I did a little research and decided to download the Blackmagic camera app to, have control over the camera. Well, me being new to all this and not able to find out the reason, the color on the display and the resulting footage was, well, I wasn't digging it. I messed with all the settings to no avail and decided to stop using the app altogether. Now, for my favorite part of this roof, the overbuild. This straight edge gives me my point back to the roof. I use a scrap piece of wood here to get the angle on the main roof. Here I am getting the actual measurement of the ridge board. I use a dab of hot glue here to attach the ridge to the truss. Now this end can get nailed off. Next we need to work on the valley nailers. I roughly position it to where it needs to be. Then I use a scrap piece of wood to get the angle of the cut, all while using the straight edge to make sure everything is planing out. Now we can shoot this off and work on the other side. Here I have already made the cuts. I am repeating the same steps as on the other side, ensuring that this side planes out as well. Now we need to lay out the rafters, but first you get to watch me struggle a little bit with the tape. I am going to keep the same 2 foot on center spacing as the trusses, so that means I have to make marks every 1.5 inches going back to the main roof. A typical building practice for laying out these rafters would be to pull your tape and get measurements that way. But I think the way I'm doing it here will be a little bit more accurate. I'm going to use this angle to square off the ridge. For the longer lengths, I'll use a straight edge to get my layout marks. And of course, what you do on one side, you need to do to the other. Without measuring anything out, I went ahead and found the angles of the cuts I will be making. It would take a great deal of time to emulate how these types of rafters are actually cut, so I chose to get them pretty close and keep moving forward. Here I'm using a piece of sandpaper to clean up the bevel cuts. Again, they are not perfect. This overbuild is going to be the last of any stick framing I do on this project. And with that being said, let's get this thing framed up. I know that there's people out there that will relate to this. Whenever I was up on a roof doing any type of roof framing, it always felt like an adult jungle gym. If you experience the same thing, I would like to hear about it down in the comments. With the overframe built, now all we need to do is get the roof sheathing on it. I start off by making a line for the first course of sheathing. Then I determine the lengths of the top and the bottom, giving me my angled cut. So now we just rinse and repeat until this side is finished up. Do you remember when I said I was going to point out why I should have made that angle cut? That's why. Now, unlike the other side, this side gave me hell. Here, I am getting the measurement for the first sheet. The long point ends up being too long, so I will need to shorten that up. After I put down this first sheet, I make a mistake that I don't catch until a couple sheets later, which, when we get to that point, will be evident. The other thing that needs to be fixed in this area is the girder and the next common truss closest to me. They both sit higher than the gable truss, which is causing the sheet to teeter. I use a carving knife here to whittle away at it. It seems like the bottom edge of the sheathing is riding up onto the main roof, so here I am taking the edge off the back, hoping it will remove that interference. So this little triangle piece that I am trying to cut to fit really should have been part of the longer sheet that's on the main roof above it. At the time of ripping that sheet, I was not confident in how that angle would have worked out, so I just left it off. But now we need to fill that in. Here I am getting the measurements for the next sheet. This side is going to mirror the other, and we'll start on the girder going to the right. It would probably help to have some pins in the gun. Well, let's try this again. And this is where I messed up. Not square at all. Now the question is, do I try and fix it without tearing anything up? Let's see what magic I can bring forth. Now that I have a straight line, let's hack away at it with a sharp carving knife. Yeah, that's not really cutting it. How about the razor pull saw? Helps to not be trying to cut through a metal pin. Get out of here. Really? Okay. Now that I have pins sticking out everywhere, they need to either be pounded down or pulled out. Alright, let's try that again. Now that all that stuff is fixed, we can fly on through this. These last few pieces are going to require a little bit more time as there is more cutting involved. I am just noticing that something is a little off. Pretty obvious, right? Now, maybe I should have used a straight edge here, but I decided to go ahead and just eyeball it. Now that this side of the house has been sheathed, I'm going to go ahead and cut off all the excess that's hanging over. I'm going to use a straight edge to do this. As I nail off the rake subfascia, I can move it to the line to straighten it out. Now, this wasn't really necessary for these shorter runs, but on the longer runs, I will be doing that to straighten them out. As these pieces are coming off, you can really start to see the roof take shape. And as I say that, I ran into a stubborn nail that for a few minutes I tried to saw through and then decided to use some power. Some excessive force causes subfascia to break apart, so I'm using some hot glue here to band-aid up this area. This is the last side that we need to cut the excess off of. It doesn't show in the footage, but a lot of these end up missing, which I do end up taking care of off camera. As I make my way down, I run into another nail that gives me trouble, and then I think, hey, maybe attacking it from the other direction would help. I wonder how much force I can use here before more things start breaking off. And according to the bounce in the subfascia, I'm thinking I need some more nails. Oh, taping off the seams. Yep, this is going to get some of you going. Okay, there's no rolling involved. All I have to do is use the pressure from my fingers, and it will be okay. Actually, that's part of the issue of using this tape, which in a few moments you will understand why. So for now, let's enjoy some seam tape going down. All right, so a few days have gone by, and the tape has decided to not want to cooperate. So before I continue sheathing this backside, I'm going to go ahead and fix all the tape. Yeah, so I had this problem with the wall sheathing too, but only in the corners for whatever reason. This is a tape that I am using, and I kind of just went on a hunch, hoping it would be the right fit. One of the biggest drawbacks to this tape is when you unroll it, the tape stretches, and it's the shrinking of the tape that causes it to peel up. At the time of doing this voiceover, I ended up using a heat gun, or, well, my wife's hair dryer on the other side, and it came out even worse. So I don't know, but I don't think I'll be using this tape again. Now that the front of the house is fully sheathed and taped off, we can move to the back. I repeat the same steps as on the front. I determine the first course of sheathing with a straight edge. Man, it would be so much easier to just say snap a line, right? Alright, let's try that again. I repeat the same steps as on the front, and to determine the first course of sheathing, let's snap a line. Yeah, that's way better. Okay, I'm going to make a promise to you guys that for the next project, I will have something that will snap a nice crisp line. There, mark that down. The only thing that I am focused on right now is throwing down full sheets. What I will end up doing is using cutoff pieces I have laying around for the areas on the sides. It might look like I'm just placing the sheets down, but I am in fact shooting everything off. I'm just not showing it because it took a long time to do. Again, it's time to cut off the excess. Same deal as on the other side. Now it gets shot off. You can see here that after every shot, I am checking to see if I missed on the subfascia. For any I did miss, I fixed them all off camera. As the framing for this house is about to wrap up, I'm curious what your vision for this house is. If this was your project, down in the comments, I want to know how you would finish it. What type and color roofing material? What color siding? What type of siding? White or black windows? What style front door? What style garage door? When you close your eyes, what do you see? I would love to hear about it. I will say this, I am 100% doing shingles. but the color scheme of the house has not yet been decided. With that concludes the framing of the house.